Just a quick disclaimer. I originally intended to make this a single video. But about halfway through, I thought it would be better to address the therapy and mental health portion in its own video. Plus, I like tackling smaller segments versus trying to tackle it in a lengthy video and adding timestamps for everything. With that said, enjoy the video.
I mean, dude, look, I feel like no matter what I say, no matter what you say, we're going to get a lot of pushback from the community because we have a very toxic community. I don't know if this is a good segue to talk about how toxic the privacy community is, but it's pretty toxic.
Right. Well,
yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess, so I feel like every community can be toxic. So I don't think it's exclusive to the privacy world.
For once, Henry was right about something. Toxicity isn't just limited to specific communities, especially Henry's own community, which has been notoriously toxic when it comes to other creators and developers. Remember when Henry was banned by Twitter?
I went through all the rules and I'm like, none of these seem like what I did. I did say one thing where because Privacy Tools IO listed NordVPN and all these affiliate things, and they delisted iVPN and Molvad, and they're clearly going a complete money route,
right?
Which is the only thing they're doing. And I was tweeting about it. I'm like, hey, just so everyone knows, iVPN Molvad were delisted from Privacy Tools IO. I think I said word for word. I'll let you decide what that means for yourself, or something like that. Like, it was very offhand. And the PTIO, and I never know his name. But the PTIO account got back, and they're like, I don't know, they were having some kind of discussions, but I pretty much responded with a thread. And on the last tweet, I said, you're going in the direction of the best VPN.coms and the other review sites on the internet, and you will die with them. That's the only tweet I said that I could see maybe getting me suspended, because maybe they could interpret it as like a threat.
Henry has banned people on his own forum for less controversial stuff. And yet, he has the nerve to whine about being banned for a post that is clearly controversial. Pot, meat kettle.
I think what really blows me away about the privacy world is, and I use this analogy for you, so we're both vegan.
Who cares?
And the vegan community, as people know, can be very intense and extreme, right? And I think the reason for that is because, like, we really, really value animal rights, and we care about animals, and we hate seeing animals. Vegans disagree all the time. You're going to see vegans talk about how much protein they need per day, what kind of supplements they should be taking, or blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, there's still this kind of bond between people who disagree in the vegan community. You're going to see high fat, high carb people, but they're all like, we're still here about the animals. It's about the animals. It's about the environment. It's about like the core cause. So despite disagreeing in little nitpicky ways, all things considered, there's still, everybody can still like get along.
Yes.
And we don't see that in our community. It's non-existent. In our community, it's like, I don't like the browser you use. Your browser you use is stupid. I don't like how you recommend this messenger. So you should just die. And it's like, what in the world? Like, why? Like,
so where's your proof? Where's the evidence of these so-called toxic comments telling you to die? One of your viewers rightfully points out that you never show any examples and just expect people to take you at your word. That's ironic given how you're always preaching about evidence.
Apple is tracking you even when its own privacy settings say it's not, new research says. A lot of you are already like, well, duh, it's Apple. And it's like, well, okay, we need research and we need ways to actually verify this kind of stuff, because that's what this whole podcast and that's what we honestly all should be doing. But what I really want to harp on, I think I've already seen some people really run away with the story with their conspiracy hats on because they didn't quite understand how it's done. So I know some people are getting their conspiracy hats on and think that either A, there's some secret GPS chip on your phone, or B, they can ping your GPS even when it's off. And that is not what is happening, so please do not fearmonger and spread this around, because it's only going to scare the out of people. And as far as we know, and all evidence and laws of physics and math tell us, cannot just activate your GPS chip on your phone without your knowledge. So just to clear that up, because I know I already saw some people mention that, and that's just not true. Third, there have been no updates to anything positive or negative about DuckDuckGo's privacy or security practices in the last several months. Some people were leaving comments that they seem under the impression it's no longer a private service, which is simply not true and not based on any data or evidence, or at least it's no less true than it was a couple months ago.
At least other channels provide proof about the toxicity from your own community. Even I was met with hostility on your own forum when I posted about Caption 8169. And look at this. I've got on-screen proof to back up my claim. Until you show proof of these toxic comments, I'm calling bullshit. Funny how Henry himself has banned users, citing they didn't contribute constructive discussion or use the right tone. And yet, I don't see him applying those same rules to posts about other creators like Tom Spark or Rob Braxman. This contradicts his rule of criticizing ideas and not people. Then again, why would Henry care in the first place? God forbid Henry holds himself and his fanboys to his own rules. Guess it's a good thing Henry shut down the Techlore Discord server. It was probably filled with years of toxic comments that Henry was happy to let slide.
I know this has turned into a rant about me and me getting some stuff off of my chest, but I'm going to leave it in your court now as to, like, what the hell's going on?
I don't know, man. It's really toxic out there. I don't think people realize how toxic privacy and security community has become lately. Not so much the cybersecurity community. I think it's been relatively better.
InfoSec is good.
Privacy community. I think InfoSec is good, but I think privacy community is absolute dumpster fire at this point. I don't know what the hell's going on. My only theory is that people have become increasingly ever more paranoid, and they're paranoid of everything. But you know what? Like, that's not a healthy mental state to be in. Like, you have to have your facts straight if you want to be paranoid, and you have to be paranoid for a good reason if you want to be paranoid. Otherwise, you're just a tinfoil hat person. Let's just say you're like the typical tinfoil hat guy meme type. I don't want to just use the word guy, but I think you become that meme if you're just like the conspiracy theory tinfoil hat person, and it's just so unnecessary.
Now that's what I call gaslighting. Despite literally years of evidence showing how creepy and invasive companies have become, you're going to sit there and say people don't have a right to be overly paranoid? By that logic, your own service has no reason to exist. Why should anyone use your service instead of Google Drive or Dropbox? Tell you what, John, why don't you run default Chrome, Edge, and Firefox on default Windows without making any modifications in the settings? Better yet, why not run an Android phone without using any custom ROMs or custom settings?
That's what I thought.
And we've been going through the same hell on social media, and we decided that, fuck it, we don't have social media accounts anymore. We don't use Reddit, we don't use Twitter, we don't care about any of that shit. Doesn't matter. It's not going to matter at the end of the day because it's really toxic. All people do, and I will say this out loud, they just complain. Instead of actually having constructive arguments with one another, instead of having, hey, you know what? Maybe we have different threat models. Yay for us. We still want to have our privacy defended, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm pretty sure in the comment section, there's going to be 10 more of these right now after this video. It's crazy. So I think at this point, the way I feel about the privacy community is like, as long as you can manage to remain not toxic and remain sterile, so to speak, from all that toxicity, by all means, go read about stuff and enjoy the community as much as you can. I think your forum's doing a good job in that sense that I think there's like a much stronger moderation around toxicity, which is great.
You serious?
Getting a sneaking suspicion John doesn't actually watch Techlore's content or even browse the forums enough. He clearly hasn't seen the toxicity whenever someone brings up Henry owning a Tesla.
Thank you for the opportunity. Of course, I have two questions. As a fellow Tesla driver, by the way, I made two videos about Tesla, and everyone just assumes that means that's the car I drive every day and I have one and blah, blah, blah. Interesting assumption is all I'll say. First question is from Private Paul. Henry, I know you drive a Tesla, and I was wondering if you have concerns about all the data that your car sends to Tesla. I understand that EVs send lots of data to their manufacturers. Do you know what data is sent, and if any is personally identifying? Can you opt out? Thanks. First off, I did a review of this and I covered some thoughts on Tesla. Whether or not that means I drive one is up to the world to decide. So for those of you who've been on the channel for a while, you know I've made that Tesla video. So I have owned a Model 3 since December of 2018, and so it's been like a year and a half now.
Henry and his followers seem so defensive over such a trivial matter. Denying the fact he owned a Tesla in the first place is way more suspicious, especially when he publicly admitted it in his own video. A video which hasn't been removed on either Odyssey or YouTube.
But I think there's so much disinformation in the privacy industry in general, in the community in general. So people are paranoid. People don't know how to react to misinformation or disinformation, or they're not educated well enough. I don't know what it is.
That's lovely. Accuse viewers and critics for being uneducated simply because they see things for what they are. People are tired of guys like you and your boy toy Henry telling them Apple and Google are trustworthy when there's a mountain of evidence that says otherwise. The privacy community is tired of guys like you pushing expensive services that the average person doesn't actually need or should even buy in the first place. And yet you're going to say their reactions are invalid?
Only don't tell me you're innocent. Because it insults my intelligence. It makes me very angry.
I think there is this context lost in the privacy community where two things can be simultaneously true, folks. It's okay. Like, I don't know where it gets lost in context, but it's fine that some people have different ways of doing the same thing. It's totally fine. It doesn't have to be this polarized.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
That's ironic given that you two have yet to show any examples of these so-called toxic comments. I'm sure viewers would also love to know what the surrounding context was when the comments were made.
If you say there's no reason, you cut out the build-up, you're just left with the act. How come you can't fucking ask questions? I just don't understand. Like, if I get bit by a rattlesnake, wouldn't you guys have some questions? Right? How did it happen? Did you not see it? Were you fucking with it? How did this snake get so mad it almost killed you? Firemen put out a fire, they don't just drive away afterwards, they sift through the debris. How did it start? Here's an oily rag, right? Ladies, can you at least admit that every ass kicking doesn't just fall out of the fucking sky?
If you're going to whine about people missing the context, at least have some proof to back it up. Your whole trust me bro attitude is not a sufficient argument, no matter how much you want it to be. For example, some would consider this post to be toxic and unprovoked. But if we take a look at the topic, it's the video Henry and John pushed out about Apple removing PWAs. And guess what? Henry himself uses the cooperation of Apple and extreme governments as part of the argument.
The amount of control Apple has over apps in the App Store, they could pretty much do anything they want right now. If I remember correctly, 2021, they decided to remove Navalny's voting apps in Russia under pressure from the Russian government so that they can't consolidate their votes for the opposition. If this was a web app, this wouldn't happen because they wouldn't be able to do this. They would try to censor the website, perhaps in Russia, but they wouldn't simply be able to do Apple wouldn't be able to do anything.
Not only has Apple complied with Russia to actively work against an open democracy, but Apple has done similar things in other areas around the world like China, where Apple has complied with China's requests to remove applications from the App Store that would otherwise likely abide by Apple's own terms and conditions in other areas of the world.
And that's the most critical part. Russia could censor the website, but it wouldn't be Apple. Apple shouldn't be the arbiter of the truth or deciding what should be on the App Store and what shouldn't be on the App Store. We think that it should be open, and web apps are the perfect way to accomplish this.
Additionally, it's no secret that Henry pushes Apple as a privacy and security solution.
I'm still going to always recommend an Apple iDevice over like any Android device to most people in my life. It's just generally going to be better for privacy and security for them, from what I've done and what I've researched. We actually just had a person make a post about this on our forum. And it was pretty thorough. It was pretty much asking, like, they're pretty much saying, I'm embarrassed to consider a MacBook. It gets in the way of my ego. I like Linux. I want to keep using Linux, but it seems like there's a lot of real benefits to the macOS ecosystem right now. And I think there were some really good discussions there that were had that I think might give you some more context and nuance to this. But my short answer is it's not a terrible place to be right now, especially for if you're coming from. If you're looking at the average person and how they interact with their devices, if you take what they're doing and you put them on an iPhone and a MacBook with iCloud's ADP, it's going to, in almost all accounts, be an improvement. So I think Apple just really raised the bar in terms of like offering decent privacy and security for the average person. And again, I'm not saying Apple's perfect. I'm not saying there's not issues with their implementations with some of this stuff, but it's actually really impressive. In fact, for the highest security threat models, Apple's kind of your best option right now from what I've been able to tell, because there's no other operating system that's been proven to be able to fight off spyware, which is what Apple's lockdown mode has been proven to do now on several occasions. It's really impressive.
So can we really call this post toxic, despite being within the context of the original thread? Pretty sure reasonable viewers might be more concerned about Henry's condescending and dismissive response.